Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
What's up, everyone? I'm here with a late night video. It is currently 10:15 in the night, but I wanted to get this out for you. I was going to do it tomorrow, but we have it today. The 49ers gave us some news finally. We've been waiting for the domino to fall, but it's not the domino we expected. The 49ers finally made it official. They had been reporting interest in a receiver all week long, and they just announced that they signed wide receiver Ray-Ray McCloud, formerly of the Pittsburgh Steelers, to a 2-year deal worth up to $10.4 million. I'm here to break it to you, tell you if the contract was worth it, and just give you a sense of who Ray-Ray McCloud is as a player for those of you that don't necessarily know McCloud. So McCloud, he is now entering his 5th year as a receiver, but he's only 25 years old. He's a fairly young receiver, which is good. And one thing that this McCloud signing shows, before I get into the numbers, it shows an indication for the 49ers that they're looking to get younger at every position. When you look at the free agent signings that the 49ers have had this season, or this offseason, cornerback, their splashy signing, it wasn't Stephon Gilmore, a guy who's on the wrong side of 30, but rather Charvarius Ward. Probably a little bit of a cheaper option, but still fairly good. He's only 25 years old. And so it kind of proves where the 49ers are going. Oren Burks, another signing that they had, was only 25 years old, and they're letting players that are older, such as Laken Tomlinson, who's reaching his age 30 season, walk. And so it kind of shows an indication where the 49ers are shifting from a regime in which they were comprised of mainly veterans to shifting towards their young core, where they're going to have Trey Lance at quarterback. They're going to have 2 young receiver weapons, or really 3. And that with obviously Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Jawan Jennings, with Ray-Ray McCloud now in the mix. And then they have young core. They have their young core of 6 star players in Fred Warner, Ark Armstead, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, who's still only 27, I believe. And then the last guy who I'm forgetting off the top of my head, I think if I didn't say Nick Bosa, that's Nick Bosa. But we got a good core of 6 players, and that's like really our main core going into 2022. But let's get into Ray-Ray McCloud. What's up, 49er Mario? Nice to see you in here, man. It is safe to say that it's time for a new generation, but not necessarily rebuilding. Because the 49ers, they've built this roster over the last 5 years with the indication of competing not only in the present, but in the future. We saw that best in 2021 when the 49ers drafted guys like Trey Lance, Aaron Banks, Trey Sermon, and even Elijah Mitchell alongside guys like Jalen Moore and Deommodore Lenoir, where all these guys were really for the 2022 plan. They wanted to write out their one core last season. They didn't expect guys like K'Wan Williams, Jaquaski Tart, DJ Jones, Jimmy Ward, and all these players to be brought back just because they thought that the markets were going to be there. But last year, because of the COVID year, all these players returned on 1-year deals because salary cap decreased, meaning there wasn't a market for these players. And so they wrote it out with their veterans one more time. But it does shift. It does indicate a shift towards a younger regime, and that's something that I want to point out. Now, when we look at Ray-Ray McCloud in his 5 years, last year was one of the bigger years in terms of his production. And Ray-Ray McCloud is a special teams ace. When you look at it, he led the league last year with 38 punts returned. He has a ton of volume. On those 38 punts, he gained 367 yards, which also led the league. The entire NFL is what I mean. 9.7 yards per return on all of his punts. That ranked 3rd in the NFL. So if you're talking about a guy who's efficient with his punt returning skills, that is Ray-Ray McCloud. And he's not only a punt returner. He returned the 3rd most kick returns last year at 35, got the 4th most yards on those kick returns at 776 yards, and earned a respectable 22.2 yards per kick return, which was 15th in the NFL. So as you see it, it's a very efficient special teams ace that the 49ers are getting with this value. And when you look at the contract, it's a 2-year deal worth up to $10.4 million. What that means is this is likely a very incentive-based contract depending on how Ray-Ray McCloud performs, not only as a returner, but as a receiver as well, because the 49ers, don't get confused. The 49ers don't have plans for Ray-Ray McCloud just as a returner, but also as a receiver. one thing I want to let you guys know on how Cal Shanahan thinks about his special teams unit is he doesn't like players that play just special teams. He prefers players to be involved not only with special teams, but with the offense or defense as well. There's a reason that Ensemble Webster, one of the better returners on the team last year, was not brought back and not placed on the 53-man roster, but rather Travis Benjamin was, because Travis Benjamin highlighted some receiver skills with Trey Lance in training camp. Kyle Shanahan valued that and was able to acquire Travis Benjamin on the 53-man roster heading into the 2021 season. Now, the 49ers are showing a huge emphasis towards special teams with Ray-Ray McCloud, but they're not only getting a returner, they're getting a receiver. Last year, Ray-Ray McCloud caught 39 passes for 277 yards. I know when you look at that, it's like, wow, only 7.1 yards per reception. Normally, receivers are in excess of 10. But I don't blame McCloud. I blame the system, because obviously you have a guy like Ben Roethlisberger who didn't push the ball down the field. The one stat, though, that is a little eye-popping to me is, of those 39 passes, Ray-Ray McCloud caught 18 first downs last year, despite only catching 7.1 yards per attempt. And why that opens my eyes is there's a similar player on the 49ers roster that has that similar production, and that's Juwan Jennings, a third down specialist who's able to convert third downs into first downs. And while his targets and while his yards per reception might not be as high, he's a reliable weapon. And something that we've seen from Ray-Ray McCloud, given that production with those 18 first downs, is that you can count on him to get that first down in certain scenarios. That's what I think is very exciting about him. Ray-Ray McCloud, though, he's obviously not a perfect receiver. He did have a drop issue in 2021. He had 6 total drops. That was a drop rate of 9.1%. But at a contract of his caliber and with the rate of how special teams players are going, with his age and combined skill set, I think that it's a huge upside deal for the 49ers. When you look at it, who are the guys that have been paid in terms of special teams money this offseason? Well, the clearest comparison is Jakeem Grant. Jakeem Grant got a 3-year deal worth $13.3 million from the Cleveland Browns to be their special teams ace and also a receiving threat. I think this Ray-Ray McCloud deal is even better. I know the average annual value is a little higher, but McCloud is 5 years younger or 4 years younger than Jakeem Grant. McCloud also provides a little more upside as a receiver, in my opinion, and McCloud is all the way up there in terms of all the returner stats. In addition, the 49ers, this deal isn't even worth $10.4 million. It's worth up to $10.4 million, likely meaning McCloud isn't going to make 5 a year. He likely makes 3.5, maybe 4 million a year with the addition or with the ability to potentially get up there in terms of the money. But Ray-Ray McCloud, it's only a 2-year deal. So if the 49ers find a reason that they don't like his production in 2022, they likely are going to be able to move on from him and get another player. But instead, if the 49ers find Ray-Ray McCloud to be a high caliber player in 2022, guess what? They have one more year of flexibility with Ray-Ray McCloud, and they get 2 good seasons at a bargain price for a player that they really, really need because of their lack of special teams. And let me get to that right now. First of all, do you see McCloud? I do see McCloud. He is on the team. I know what you mean, Mario, something different. But let me get to the 49ers and their special teams play. The 49ers now have shown a huge emphasis towards their special teams play. And Mario's question is, do you see McCloud being a key source for us? Now, right now, when I look at it, I see McCloud being our top punt returner and top kick returner. And I think that's very important because last year we had players like Brandon Ayuk, key elements of our offense, being forced to go out there and return punts because we didn't have a reliable source out there. We had guys like Benjamin, we had guys like JaMycal Hasty, and we had a ton of issues on special teams last year because we had below average players trying to play those positions. And now we have a guy where we can solidify him into that role and not be worried about his production or his inability to do something or even his injury issues. Because with the Brandon Ayuk, obviously you're placing a little more of an emphasis in him. But Ray-Ray McCloud, since we're likely to use him situationally as a receiver, not as an every down receiver, it is preserving his body. We're preserving his body even though we're putting him out there for those special team snaps, and we significantly boost our special teams unit. I know a lot of people don't look at special teams as important, but the 49ers lost games specifically because of special teams last year. When you look at it, week 4 in Seattle, we had a dropped kick by Trenton Cannon that resulted in a fumble, and we had a lot of special teams miscues. Travis Homer had a 73-yard touchdown because the 49ers couldn't tackle on special teams and couldn't address a wide open 4th and 6 run on a fake punt. So there are a lot of issues that our special teams unit had, be it tackling issues, be it mainly returning issues, and now we have a solidified returner. So I do think our special teams unit should see a significant boost. That leads me to my point of how the 49ers are looking to place an emphasis on special teams in 2022. And they already signed Oren Burks to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. I don't know the guaranteed money on it, but that's a fairly solid deal for a player with upside. When I look at Oren Burks, I see Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles 2.0. And Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles has been a very solid, very, very solid guy on the special teams unit for the past 2 years. Flanagan-Fowles had a very solid year last year as well, and we retained him on a 1-year deal because he was a restricted free agent. Now, obviously, availability is key, and so now you have two players who can play very similar roles on special teams. You have two stout tacklers in Burks and Flanagan-Fowles that should help wrap players up in this unit and should help propel our special teams unit. So I'm fine paying a little bit of a premium for Oren Burks, but like I said earlier with Jakeem Grant, special teams players are expensive this offseason, hence why Ray-Ray McCloud could get a 2-year deal worth around $10.4 million. And Ray-Ray McCloud, I think he also shows how the 49ers are improving their special teams play. I think both players are going to be significant additions, and they might be underrated additions just because the 49ers, or just because we don't normally see the impact of special teams on a regular basis unless a huge screw up or a huge play. I think that this is consistently going to put our offense in better scenarios, and it also shows a little more confidence in our punting unit and our kicking unit and things like that. So I think it's helpful for the 49ers where they don't necessarily have to worry about one unit being a hindrance to them. And now I think that this is a big thing, but also this signifies one thing, and that is there's more to come. The 49ers went into this offseason saying receiver was a position they wanted to address. They had been in the mix for certain players. Allen Robinson was actually a play they were in the mix for. They were interested in him per Josina Anderson, one of the most trusted sources on this on Twitter and in the NFL world. They were interested in him. So they were poking around at receiver, and now they get their guy. And it's a guy who they can potentially develop into a solid slot receiver. I think Ray-Ray McCloud can be used as a gadget weapon for the 49ers in 2022 and increase his offensive productivity. We haven't necessarily seen him in plays like jet sweeps, but I do think McCloud provides that upside for the 49ers in which we can schematically use our receivers in different ways. And we know Kyle Shanahan's propensity for getting these receivers open. So that's what I'm interested in and seeing what Ray-Ray McCloud's role will be in 2022. It's a little bit unknown offensively, but now really what the 49ers are doing is just building their depth and having options. We don't want guys like Travis Benjamin, and all respect to Trent Sherfield, but we don't want guys like Travis Benjamin and Trent Sherfield getting consistent reps next year. But a guy like Ray-Ray McCloud, who possesses a good amount of upside at the receiver position, given his lack of reps there so far, I think that definitely shows that the 49ers are looking not only to get younger, but also to acquire depth at key positions. I expect them to do the same at safety, where they currently don't have a starting strong safety. I wouldn't mind Jaquiski Tartt coming back. I said that in a video yesterday. You guys should go check that out. I wouldn't mind Jaquiski Tartt coming back, but there is a ton of safety talent on the market. Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers, Anthony Harris. I think DeShazer Elliott is his name from Baltimore. There is probably 5, 6, 7 starting caliber safeties on the market, which means the 49ers are going to be able to get the guy that they want at a bargain price once they trade Jimmy Garoppolo. In addition, there are a good amount of starting right guards on the market still. There are probably 5 starting caliber right guards on the market. And given how the guard market has dried up a little bit, the 49ers should also get a starting caliber player at a cheaper price in the range of $4 to $5 million on a 1-year deal before they build up their value for 2023. And so I think they can fill the holes that they have currently on their roster and be in a good position before the draft. And I think that's going to be extremely important. Do I consider Tartt as top safety? Here's how I say Tartt. I don't consider him a top 5 safety in the NFL. Nowhere near that. I do think Jimmy Ward is the better player, but I do think that Tartt is a valuable player for the 49ers because he's been with in the roster since 2014. I know that his health has been an issue, but when he's played, I think he provides the 49ers with a versatile option. They're able to interchange their safeties because not only can Tartt play in the box, Tartt can also cover, and that's something the 49ers have lacked at that strong safety position outside of Tartt. Tarvarius Moore has been injured. Talanoa Hufanga struggled in coverage when he was put in coverage situations last year. And in my opinion, I personally don't want someone who's struggled in coverage. I understand Hufanga can be a better player, but right now, in a window where we're trying to compete, I think guys like Tartt elevate our ceiling. And I do think that we should still draft a safety Tart can be the bridge safety at age 31. He could be the bridge safety for a year for a guy who we could potentially draft in the second round and then switch to them next season, or switch to them the following season. But in addition, the 49ers run these three safety sets, and I think that they were fairly effective last year. Imagine now having a player better than Talanoa Hufanga, who you're going to address in the draft. That type of tandem could be scary, and it could be a huge addition to this defensive back unit. And that's why I think Tart should be brought back. And if not Tart, then it should be another player of his caliber in free agency at a similar price. I do think Tart can be brought back cheap, which is why I'm a proponent of it, because he's obviously been a good scheme fit for the past 6 years. But that's my thoughts on Tart. In other moves, apart from what did I say? Right guard, safety, and now the 49ers have addressed receiver. They could look to also get a backup right tackle just to push Mike McGlinchey in training camp should he struggle a little bit coming back from his torn quadriceps injury. But right now, the 49ers have a very solid rotation. All around, I think. And with teams getting worse in the NFC, we just saw the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. They don't really have financial flexibility. They've had to cut players like Zadarius Smith. They haven't really had a stronger roster going into 2022. And now they just lost Devontae Adams. I understand they got very significant draft compensation, but nobody's going to be able to replace Devontae Adams' production in 1 year, which is why I think that the Green Bay Packers now have fallen a bit in the NFC. It's really the 49ers, the Rams, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I do think that they should go all in 2022. They've shown the idea of doing it. They've already restructured players like Arik Armstead and George Kittle. And I do expect once Jimmy Garoppolo moves, obviously you have $20 million in free cap space where now you can go address more players in free agency. So I do expect them to continue expanding their depth. I love, though, the Ray-Ray McCloud signing in terms of upside. I'll wait for the contract details to see how much guaranteed money it is, because if it's lower than $7 million, I think this is a steal deal for the 49ers based on how the market's gone. And lastly, before I end, one sec. Educating me. Hey, thank you, Mario, for tuning in, man. I loved it. And thank you for also hitting me up on Twitter, man. If you have any other questions, make sure you hit me up on Twitter. Anybody, if you want, you can always DM me, and I'll be sure to respond if you DM me. I always love interacting with you guys. But thank you guys so much. You guys are the reason I do this. I love football, and I love interacting with you guys online. It's me. I'm out for tonight, and I'll